Welcome to your May 2026 real estate market update for Kingston and the surrounding area. That includes Loyalist Township, Greater Napanee, Stone Mills, South Frontenac, and Gananoque. I'm going to walk you through what happened in May, what the year-to-date numbers are telling us, and what some of the bigger forces at play mean for buyers and sellers right now. So let's get into it. Before I start, I'm going to apologize in advance. I'm dog sitting today. There's going to be barking. Before we go community by community, I want to flag a few things that are directly shaping conditions across this region right now. The first one is interest rates. The Bank of Canada has been on a cutting cycle, and that's meaningfully improved affordability compared to the peak. That's a tailwind for buyers who've been sitting on the sidelines. Today is June 10th, and the Bank of Canada held the rate at 2.25%, though economists are expecting that the next Bank of Canada rate announcement will be an increase. The second thing, and this is very recent news, is that INVISTA, which is Kingston's largest private sector employer, confirmed layoffs of more than 100 workers on June 5th. MPP Ted Sue called it a considerable loss for the community, and he noted that when a facility of that size cuts jobs, the impact is felt well beyond the plant gates by families, suppliers, and local businesses. We don't yet know the full ripple effect on the real estate market, but any reduction in employment confidence in Kingston's core workforce is something buyers and sellers need to be aware of. The third thing that's happening is the very controversial Alto high-speed rail project. The federal government's crown corporation, Alto, is developing a high-speed rail network. The two proposed routes go through Frontenac, Stone Mills, and Lennox and Addington, and they're still undecided. That uncertainty is creating real hesitation around rural and larger lot properties. Some landowners are worried about potential expropriation. Others are watching to see where the final route is placed and if the project goes ahead at all. Until there's more clarity, that uncertainty is a factor in those markets. And the fourth thing is inventory. New listings are up substantially across most communities year over year. There's more supply with softer demand, and that's shifting negotiating power toward buyers in ways that we have not seen in several years. So let's look at each of the communities. Kingston is by far the largest and the most liquid market in this region, with 191 transactions in May alone and 676 sales year to date. The year-to-date average price of $620,000 is down 2% from last year. That's a modest correction that reflects the broader shift in market conditions rather than any fundamental problem with the city's housing stock or desirability. What's interesting in Kingston is the sale-to-list price ratio, meaning how close homes are selling to their asking price. Year to date, sellers are averaging 97.6 cents on the dollar, which is still strong. The market isn't capitulating. Sellers who price correctly are still getting very close to what they're asking. Days on market have increased. We're now at a median of 23 days year to date, and that's up from 19 days last year. That's a meaningful change. Buyers have time to think and to do due diligence to make considered decisions, and that's healthy. For buyers, Kingston remains a market where you have options and time. For sellers, accurate pricing is everything. Overpriced homes are sitting, well-priced homes, they're still moving. There's some good news in Napanee. It's the standout on price appreciation year to date. The year-to-date average price of $527,000 is up 6% from the same period last year. This is the only community in our report showing meaningful year-over-year price growth on a sustained basis. May itself was softer. Average prices were down from April and slightly below last May. But the year-to-date trend is unmistakably positive, and transaction volume bounced back strongly with 24 sales after only 11 in April. Napanee continues to attract buyers who want more space for their dollar. At just over $500,000 for the average home, it represents genuine value when you're comparing with Kingston and Loyalist, and buyers are recognizing that. The sale price to list price ratio of 92.4% in May is lower than other communities, which suggests that there's still room to negotiate. But the year-to-date average of 94.4% tells us that sellers who price strategically are finding buyers. One note of caution, the Alto rail route uncertainty is relevant here too. If a corridor runs through Lennox and Addington, landowners with large properties could face expropriation concerns. We don't have a defined route yet, but it's worth having that conversation with your agent before making decisions about rural or farm properties in the northern part of Greater Napanee. Loyalist Township tells one of the more interesting stories in the region this month. It's always important to remember that a lot of what's selling in Loyalist are new build homes, and government programs that have recently been announced are having some impact. May showed some softening. Average prices are down 9% from last year, but look at the transactional signals and a different picture emerges. 20% of sales in May closed above asking price. That's the highest at any community in our report this month. The average sale to list ratio was 99.5%. Sellers here are getting very close to asking. Days on market dropped sharply from 41 days in April to 28 days in May. What that tells us is that Loyalist is not a slow market, it's a selective one. Buyers know what they want here, and when the right property comes along, competition is real. Year to date, the average price of $568,000 is down 3.7% from the prior year. It's a moderate correction in a community that ran very hot during the pandemic years. The fundamentals here remain strong. Proximity to Kingston, good infrastructure, and a community that attracts both families and downsizers. For buyers considering Loyalist, don't assume you'll automatically have the upper hand. Well-priced properties are still seeing competitive interest, so come prepared. South Frontenac has experienced the sharpest year-over-year price correction in our report, down 12.2% on the year-to-date average and 13.8% on the year-to-date median. That's a significant shift, but context matters. South Frontenac was one of the biggest beneficiaries of the pandemic-era urban exodus, with buyers flooding in from Toronto and Ottawa in search of rural properties, waterfront, and land. Those prices ran up fast and hard, and now what we're seeing is a normalization. The average days on market of 52 days is the highest of any community in our report. Buyers here are taking their time, and properties need to work harder to attract attention. The total dollar volume year to date is down 37.5% from last year. That's driven by both lower prices and a significant drop in transaction volume. This is where the Alto situation is most acute. South Frontenac mayors have been publicly calling for an alternate 401 corridor routing, precisely because of what a rural routing through Frontenac could mean for land values and expropriation risk. Until there's certainty on the route, some buyers, particularly those considering larger rural parcels, may hold off. Sellers in South Frontenac need to be aware that this uncertainty is a real psychological factor in negotiations right now. That said, for buyers with a long view, South Frontenac offers genuine opportunity. Prices have come down, inventory is up, and the lifestyle the area offers has not changed. Stone Mills is a small market with just 13 sales in May and 34 year to date, which means individual transactions can move the averages significantly. So read these numbers with that in mind. What's notable is despite small volume, prices are actually up 19% compared to May of last year. That's driven largely by the mix of properties that happened to sell this month. The year-to-date average of $547,000 is down only 2.7% from last year, which is a relatively mild correction. Days on market are long at 52 days on average, the same as South Frontenac, and termination volume is rising, which tells us that some sellers are listing, not getting what they need, and pulling back. The Alto uncertainty applies here as well. Stone Mills sits within Lennox and Addington, and rural landowners are watching the rail route conversation very closely. That uncertainty is a real factor for anyone considering a purchase or sale of acreage in this area. For buyers, there are opportunities here for those who are patient and do their homework. For sellers, pricing needs to reflect today's market, not 2022 expectations. Gananoque is also a small but interesting market and May delivered a strong month. There were 14 sales, which doubled April's volume, with an average price of $582,000, which is up 12% from last year. Year to date, the average price of $514,000 is up 6% from last year, making Gananoque one of the few communities showing positive price growth on an annual basis alongside Napanee. So what's driving this? Well, Gananoque continues to attract buyers who want access to the Thousand Islands, a small town lifestyle, while still being close enough to Kingston for work and services. Waterfront and recreational properties continue to draw interest from buyers. New listings are up 34% year to date compared to last year, so supply is growing, but demand has kept pace so far. All 14 May sales closed below asking price with an average sale to price listing price of 94.2%, which tells us buyers do have room to negotiate. But the overall price trend is still moving upward. GAN remains one of the most affordable entry points in the Leeds and Grenville region with genuine lifestyle appeal, and it's worth watching. So let me bring it all together with what this market means for you, depending on where you sit. Well, for buyers, you've got more power than you've had in years, more inventory, longer days on market, and softer prices in several communities mean that you can be deliberate. Use that time wisely and do your due diligence, but don't dilly-dally. Well-priced homes are selling fast. Kingston and Loyalist remain active enough that well-priced, well-presented homes still attract real competition. Don't assume the entire market is slow. It's community and property specific. For sellers, I keep saying it, pricing is everything in this market. Homes that are priced to reflect today's reality, not 2022, are still selling. Homes that aren't sitting and often terminating are the ones that are priced sharply. Presentation matters more than it did when the market was hot. Buyers are comparing carefully, so make sure your home shows its best. If you're in South Frontenac or Stone Mills and have concerns about the Alto rail route and what it might mean for your property's value, talk to an agent. You want to understand your position before that uncertainty resolves in either direction. As always, every situation is different, and if you have questions about what these numbers mean for your specific property or your plans to buy or sell, I'd love to have that conversation with you. And that's your May 2026 Kingston area market update. The dominant theme across the entire region is 2026 is a market finding its floor. Prices have softened in most communities compared to last year. Transaction volumes are down in almost every area, and inventory is up, giving buyers meaningfully more choice than they've had in 2024 or early 2025. But here's what that data is also showing us. The pace of decline is slowing. In Kingston specifically, the year-to-date average price is down only 2% from last year. In Napanee, it's actually up 6% year-to-date. The free fall some people feared or dreamed of, it just hasn't materialized. What we're seeing is a more deliberate market, buyers taking more time, sellers needing to price more carefully, and days on market stretching out in several communities. That's not a broken market, it's a balanced market. We'll talk next month. Hey, if this information has been helpful, please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for tuning into the Kingston Real Estate Insider. Stay smart, stay local, stay ahead. Catch you in the next episode. Hey, if this information has been helpful, please